Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York. Welcome to this Monday edition of Bluegrass Brooklyn. I'm your host, Mike Wilner. On these Monday editions, we like to explore topics that are related to, supporting, or adjacent to our favorite music. Today, our topic is Bluegrass, the next generation. Who are the artists and musicians who will be playing, teaching, and growing this music in the next 10, 20, 30 years? Today, we're talking to two of those musicians, 24-year-old Alani Sugar, who is a music teacher, fiddle player, the recording and performing artist, and has made a career out of bluegrass music. We also hear from Izaak Schwartz, a 15-year-old banjo wizard who plans to pursue a career in music and related activities. Coincidentally, Izaak's mom, Amanda Schwartz, is the mastermind behind the recent graphics upgrade for the AFBA, or Appalachian Fiddle and Bluegrass Association's website and Instagram, etc. They were featured on this podcast recently. Before we get to speak with them, please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn, Brooklyn spelled BKLYN, on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you like, you can drop an email to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com with any ideas, comments, or just say hi. Promise you we'll respond. If you're looking for jams in Uptown Manhattan, Riverdale, the Bronx, New Jersey, and across the country, really, check out bluegrassjamsnearme.com. All right, let's get to the interview. So here we are with Alani Sugar, fiddle player, educator, performing artist, recording artist. Alani, first of all, thanks for taking time to join us here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I first met and heard you at the Delfest Academy, which was very cool, because I think this was a couple of years ago. And man, one of those situations where I just had to stop dead in my tracks and listen. Some amazing playing.
Thank you.
So let's start off here. Do you have a conservatory education?
I took a lot of fiddle lessons as a kid, as a teenager. I went to a lot of music festivals. I had considered going to East Tennessee State University that has a bluegrass degree. And I decided not to. I think at the time because I didn't want to move far away from home, which is funny because now I live in Argentina. Yeah, I just didn't want to go to college. And I graduated high school in May 2019. I stayed home for a few months. I was playing in a band and focusing on playing a lot with the band. And then COVID hit. And that's actually when I started teaching online. That's the progression.
So I got to ask, Argentina?
Yeah, random, but not actually so random. I met some musicians actually who are from here, who live here. When they were on tour in the States, they're in a band. Mm-hmm. I went to see them play every chance I got. There's a band called Schwartz. And they played like mix between bluegrass and Argentine folk music, basically. And I loved that. And I went to see them every chance that I got. And then after COVID, they didn't tour anymore. They went home and no more. They just decided not to tour again. And so eventually I was like, oh, I guess I got to go to Argentina and visit them. And I did that. And I visited a few more times and eventually moved here.
Wow, talk about following your musical heart. That's pretty awesome.
I know. Yeah.
I remember seeing here in New York, we have Wynton Marsalis has Jazz at Lincoln Center, and he invites all kinds of artists, international artists, and he had an Argentine tango band. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't realize what it was playing as a button accordion. I'd never seen one before. And it was just so overpowering. I was not prepared for what I actually heard that night. Outside of bluegrass, do you explore genres and types of music that are from around the world?
I have. Lately I haven't been as much, but I went through a really, I guess it would have been that time period where I was going to see the Schwartz play a lot. I was interested in like Argentine folk music and Mexican folk music, and I love Irish music that's related more closely to bluegrass and old time American music. Yeah, I've gone through phases of all kinds of different like folk music, specifically from different parts of the world.
Interesting. I know that we've heard from some musicians who say, listen to and play as many different kinds of music as you can. But if I asked Andy Statman, the legendary mandolin player, he'd say, no, focus on one thing and get all the way down to the very bottom of the well. What's your philosophy?
I really love bluegrass and old time music. And I would say the best thing anyone can do is just follow whatever your interest is at the time. And so some people's interest really like you find one thing that you really like and the only thing you want to do is learn more about it and get really good at that one thing. And then other people just their interests maybe go in one direction and then they lose interest and then the interest goes in another direction. I think that's totally fine too, because you go and pick up little things from one side of something and little things from another thing. And then you end up getting really way better as a musician that way.
Now, you're quite multifaceted. As I said, you are a performer, you're a recording artist, and you are an educator. So do you consider yourself an educator who plays fiddle and performs, or a performer who plays fiddle and educates? Or how do you see yourself?
Good. I think, I really enjoy all of those things. I would say I actually enjoy recording a little bit less than all the other things, although if I'm like recording with other musicians that I really like playing with, and it's fun. I really like performing as well, but I would say my job is as an educator, as a teacher. I really love teaching so much, but I consider it like my job because I think I can take it more seriously and be more organized and with it that way. And I also really love performing and playing music with people, either just in jam sessions or on stage, but I do that for fun. And I really make that distinction, and I think I'm going to get on my friends' nerves because I refuse to play in a regular band and play a lot of gigs because to me, it's just for fun. I like playing music for fun.
On the show, I get to talk to quite a few professional touring musicians, and every one of them talks about the touring burnout. It can rob you of the joy of music and all that kind of stuff. So you may be onto something there.
Perhaps.
I got to ask you, is there a particular teacher or mentor who's had the most significant influence on your style or musical journey?
I've had a few really influential teachers. I would say the two main ones would be my first violin teacher when I was a kid, when I first started playing violin when I was 9. And then my first fiddle teacher who introduced me to fiddle music. So my first violin teacher when I was in elementary school taught me for a couple of years from 4th and 5th grade. And she, as she says in her words, she put the violin in my hand for the first time. And she was an amazing teacher. And then I actually got to learn from her again in high school. She moved schools at some point. So when I was in 10th through 12th grade, I got to be in her orchestra class. And so she had a really big impact on my life. And then my first fiddle teacher when I was 14, 15, 16 introduced me. I'd never heard of bluegrass music before. I'd never heard of fiddle tunes before. And I showed up one day in his lessons and he said, well, do you want to learn a fiddle tune? And I was like, well, I have no idea what that is, but it sounds fun. And that was that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know I had a public school music education to start me off too. It's pretty amazing that public schools can really get people started in their musical journeys. Yeah. Similar question. This may be a tough question, but I like to ask players who their Mount Rushmore of fiddle players would be. Meaning, the most iconic to you. Doesn't have to be the best, fastest, most famous, but only 4. So
only 4,
because there's only 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. So tell me who and why.
Okay, well, Jason Carter goes up there for sure.
Oh yeah,
I learned from him at Delfast Academy, and yeah, he's amazing. One fiddle player who occurs to me is Billy Contreras. He plays like almost like jazz, but is also influenced by bluegrass probably, and I love his groove so much. Who else?
You're not the first person. By the way, you're not the first person to put Billy on their Mount Rushmore.
He's so good. He's amazing. Michael Cleveland is really good. I've seen him play a bunch of times. He's just really great. Oh man, Kenny Baker, obviously. Kenny Baker is
that's a gimme.
I've gone through and learned a lot of his music, but especially the Kenny Baker Plays Film in Row album, and I've taught it through the whole thing to a lot of my students. It's like just classic.
I saw a video of him playing Jerusalem Ridge, and his right hand is so relaxed. I don't even know how he's holding the bow. You know what I mean? Why he's not just dropping it, and yet you hear the sound that comes out. It's quite incredible. Well, that's a good Mount Rushmore. At some point, I'm going to have to compile them. I've asked a bunch of people that question. Many try and cheat and say, can I put an extra up there? And I know if
just squeeze in another one.
I know if I had to, I would. It would be tough for me, but I'm sure that Kenny Baker would be up there and others. Now, we're interested in learning about the next generation that's going to carry bluegrass forward. If you go to a typical bluegrass concert, at least here in New York and elsewhere that I've been, as well as festivals and stuff, there's a lot of older folks, which being an older folk, I have no objection to. But, I'm thinking, where's the music going? Is it going to be continued? And that's why we're very interested in who the next generation is going to be. So what I find interesting and would like to explore is your dedication to teaching, because I don't find a lot of younger players who are that interested in teaching, but more will really focus on touring and getting out there and making and creating a presence. So tell me what motivates you to that direction?
I would say my teachers, like the teachers I mentioned before, had a big impact on my life. They were really good teachers. They were really kind people to me. And even separately from teaching music, I have always been interested in teaching. I've had a lot of good just teachers in school and that have inspired me to want to teach. And then it was really natural to me. As a young teenager, I was already like teaching my younger siblings how to play violin. And
cool.
And then as I got into playing bluegrass, I was teaching my friends that I met at the jam sessions, their kids and grandkids. I was teaching how to play violin and mandolin eventually. And I always loved teaching. And it was just super natural shift as COVID hit and everyone was doing things online. I was like, maybe I can do this online teaching thing.
First is, you are not the only musician who has cited the pandemic as like a turning point in their careers. First of all, how old were you when that event occurred in 2020?
I was 18. I turned 19 in 2020.
So let's explore that a little bit. As a musician, just getting started, how did that impact you?
So, in a strange way, it had a positive impact because I knew I wanted to get into teaching. I had actually been performing a lot before the pandemic, and I don't know what I thought if I wanted to like perform full time or tour or anything, but I was really enjoying that. But when the pandemic hit, it just felt like a natural progression. I wanted to teach, and people were teaching online. I had already made a profile on one of those online music teaching platforms, and I just happened to get my first student during that time on like April or May 2020 and just progressed from there. It wasn't like something I did on purpose. I guess that's how the pandemic affected it.
Adapt and survive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you two kinds of teaching scenarios that you may or may not have encountered, but I'm interested in how you handle it. So somewhere out there's a 9-year-old Alani or Alan Sugar who's starting out his or her musical journey, and they find your excellent clips on Bluegrass Licks and you're performing on YouTube, and they get a hold of you. What's your approach to teaching that person?
A little 9-year-old.
Yep.
I try to make it as fun as possible, as like free as possible, and follow and this is really doesn't just apply to kids. It applies to anyone of any age, but I try to follow where the student leads me or what they're interested in. Now, when it comes to kids who are really just starting out and have never played an instrument before, don't know anything about music, there's also a really important element of like fundamentals and technique and that kind of thing. So I try to get an idea of how much they know about, not about playing, but just about music in general. Like, do they have a song that they really want to learn or a style of music they really want to learn or not? And I just start with here's how you hold the bow, here's how you hold the violin, remember to sit up straight, and remember not to throw your violin across the room, and this is an A and this is a B, and let's learn to play a song with those two notes, and that kind of thing.
So next question.
Yeah.
You have a 68 or 70-year-old person who has never picked up a fiddle before. By the way, that was me 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, and I'm like, oh, I really like bluegrass music and I want to learn to play it. But what's your approach to teaching that person?
So same thing in terms of the fundamentals. Here's how to hold the bow, here's how to hold the violin, and that kind of thing. But those older people will have a lot more of an idea of what the music sounds like that they want to learn. I would try and do a lot of playing along with backing tracks, playing along with recordings, even if we're not playing exactly the thing that they're playing in the recording.
Right.
But I might start with learning a scale, like, for example, what's like a really good beginner tune, like a shortening bread, which could be in the key of A or something. I would teach them maybe the A major scale, then teach them the basic melody to shorten bread, and find like a really nice backing track and practice playing that along with it. And the goal being not to necessarily play every single note exactly the way you intend to, but to know where you are when you make a mistake and pick up there and keep going.
Yep.
That's going to give them the ability to go to a jam session and play music with people and have a good time. Getting
back in, as you said, jumping back in, finding, okay, here I am. And now I can start counting again. That's a critical skill. And I think that's just as important in bluegrass music when you lose track of the form and it's like, what's the chord? Stop playing, listen for a second. Okay. Tell me about the most difficult teaching challenge you have dealt with and how you dealt with it.
Okay. Yeah, without making it obvious who this student is. I teach a student who I really enjoy teaching, who is a child and is really ambitious with the music that they want to learn. And at the same time, really struggles with being challenged in new ways. Yeah. Really struggles to take directions and not be hurt by them if she did something wrong, for example. So I had to change my approach a lot, which my approach with most of my students is, okay, let's follow what they want to do and let the students go in the direction they want and have a lot of freedom. With this student, I have had to be a little bit more strict and be like, okay, we can do whatever music you want. We can play a game at the end of class every time, as long as in the middle, we can work a little bit for a certain amount of minutes or something on something that I want to do.
Interesting.
And that's worked for the most part. I've seen this student has made a ton of progress in the last couple months with that.
How gratifying that is, right?
It's amazing.
You mentioned jamming. Is there much of a jam culture down in Argentina, I got to ask?
There is a community here there's an old time jam and there's a few different bluegrass bands. And it's good. So there's like the original band that I told you about that did tours in the States, and they went to all the festivals. They went to Cliptop and Galax every year and a few other festivals. And so they really got a sense of how the jamming culture works and how the music sounds. And they came down back to Argentina and started teaching everybody about it. So there's a really good group of, 20, 30 people that know a repertoire of old time tunes, and we get together every so often and play them. And I get together with some of my friends and practice singing harmony. That's like one of the things I've been working on the past year and a bit. So yeah, there's a great scene.
That's great. I like to ask, do you have a jamming moment that was particularly ridiculous or silly or exceptional that you'd like to share with us?
Just from my life of jamming?
Yeah.
So I used to do, this is more when I was a teenager, at like going to jams with other teenagers and festivals and stuff. We really got into playing music in all 12 keys. Now, I guess you can see this in my videos. I tell people to play in all 12 keys, and some people hate it, and it's okay. That's fine with me. But I used to go to festivals and play. We would have jams where we would either pick a tune, and every time we pass the tune to the next person, we would change the key, either go up a half step or go around the circle of fifths. And it was really goofy and funny. And when people would walk by that were just listening and they heard us do like a key change, it would startle people. I thought it was really funny. And the other game we would play which would be fun and silly, is we would go around in a circle and pick a key and have to think of another tune in that key. So I would play a tune and then go to the next person. They have to play a different tune in the same key, or a tune, even if it's not normally in that key. Like you could pick a tune that wasn't normally in that key, but all the tunes had to be in that key. And then you get that year out if you don't think of one or something. Those were the really fun jamming moments of my life.
And that's also pretty productive in terms of musical ability. I wanted to ask you if you get to perform down there.
Yes, occasionally. So I have a band that I play with occasionally that's called La Bagoria String Band, which is an old-time band. Then we recorded an album like last June.
What's the album called?
It's called Lanin, Lanin. And it's on Bandcamp and streaming and stuff. But really, the reason the band got together was to record that album, because a few people wanted to learn tunes. And so we just sent some tunes between each other in a group chat. And then we were like, so let's learn them, let's record it. And then eventually after that, they were like, yeah, let's like play a gig too, or why not? So we did that. That's one band. And then I've played last year, like I said, I was working on my harmony singing a lot. So me and a friend learned the entirety of the Skaggs and Rice album. Nice. And we played some gigs doing those songs.
So tell me about your journey into singing. When did you pick that up and why, and how's it going?
Yeah, it's going. I actually sang some back when I was playing in my bluegrass band as a teenager. That was Ghost Sugar. And my bandmate encouraged me to start singing. And I didn't really want to, but I was like, okay, sure. So I sang Bury Me Beneath a Willow and I don't know, a few different songs. And I did sing harmony on one song. I sang harmony on Old Home Place, I think. But then that band ended, of course, pandemic, and I just wasn't singing for a while. Wasn't really taking it seriously. And then I did record an album, a solo album that I never listened to. I've never gone back to, but I did sing on some of those songs, on a lot of those songs. But yeah, recently the past year or so, I've gotten back into it. And the thing is with singing is I get a little bit burnt out with it. I'll practice a lot of singing and I feel like I make some progress and then maybe I should take a break from it. It's just like learning an instrument.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I'm probably getting the experience that my adult students get when they're learning an instrument.
So what's next for you, Alani?
Ooh, a great question. I'm probably sticking to the same things for the next near future. I'm going to keep on teaching. I'm going to keep playing occasionally with these different bands, and I'm going to keep jamming, and I'm going to keep learning how to sing harmony. I don't think I have any big plans, though, which feels okay. It feels okay to not have any big plans.
Yeah. If listeners are interested in learning more about lessons with you or just learning more about you, where should they visit?
My website is alanisugar.weebly.com. Okay. I also have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. That's just all either Alani Sugar or Alani Sugar Music, but you just search me and you'll find me.
Okay.
And my email, alanisugarmusic@gmail.com.
We'll put all that in the program notes. And any projects or any specific special events coming up in your mind?
No, I am gonna release that album, the Skaggs and Rice Learning Project. Me and my friend recorded that, and I'll probably put it up on Bandcamp. But yeah, it's called Ricky Tony. That's what we're calling it.
All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking time today, and I'm very glad we got the chance to speak. And we'll look forward to checking back in with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
So here we are with Izaak Schwartz, 15-year-old banjo player who we all know from around the festival and music camp circuit here in the Northeast, but we really think you should get to know. First of all, Izaak, thanks for making time today.
Thank you.
So first things first, why the banjo?
Well, I didn't start with the banjo, actually. I started with almost every other bluegrass instrument first, until I went to a bluegrass festival and I heard this really good band playing, the Rutabaggers from Berkeley. And I wanted to see if I could get lessons from any of them on any of the other instruments I played. the only one who taught lessons was the banjo player. And I just happened to have a banjo at home. So I decided, you know what, I might as well try it. And it pretty much immediately just became obvious that that was the instrument that I was best at. So,
Well, first of all, this the just happened to have a banjo statement. I have to investigate a little bit. Is your family musical?
yeah, not as much of a history of bluegrass music, I think, but my dad played a lot of Dixieland jazz and piano, and my mom plays French horn in orchestra, and they both were in the Marine band, I think.
So the banjo is your spirit instrument then.
Yeah, sure.
Let me ask you, how much time do you spend on a daily basis playing?
Well, it ranges from maybe 30 minutes if I don't have too much I need to practice to like over an hour. I have 2 big shows coming up, so I've been practicing a lot of the stuff for that. I do a lot of metronome practice, which a lot of banjo players avoid, and scale practice as well.
It's funny because the banjo is like the driving rhythmic force, right? It's got that 8th note pulse going, and you got to keep that thing very steady. So you'd think that metronome would be a popular or a common practice technique.
Yeah, well, it does take a long time. You have to start really slow and kind of build up by maybe 5 beats per minute every time, or even less. That's at least how I like to do it. I like to build it up slowly.
Yeah, that's an interesting advice. Go slow to play fast. I hear it for every instrument. I've heard that. Do your friends play music?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends by now who are around my age who play bluegrass. I go to the IBMA, and they have this Kids on Bluegrass program, which I've been doing for a few years. And you really get to meet a lot of other people who around your age who have the same interests, and it's really cool. And they kind of put you all together in a small band, and you get to rehearse stuff. It's really cool.
Right. You may know one of our local players, Rie Park, who plays.
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah, she's said the same kind of thing, that it's getting the opportunity to play and sing and so on with people your age makes a big difference. I can imagine that to be true. Do you have any plans to pursue a conservatory education? I know a lot of younger players in your age, so you're 15, a lot of players your age are kind of aiming at Berkeley or ETSU or one of these conservatory type of schools. Are you thinking about doing that?
So if I go to college, it's probably going to be for music, but I definitely plan to have a secondary career. I would want to keep bluegrass really as my secondary career, I would say, because you can't really make a lot of money off of it.
Yep.
Unless you're like really famous, like Alison Krauss or Ricky Skaggs, I think.
Do you mind if I ask if you have anything in mind?
So I actually have quite interesting ideas. I plan to hopefully get in the organ tech business. So working on digital organs, like church organs or pipe organs as well.
Okay, gotta ask. I started off why the banjo. Now I have to ask why organs.
So let's see. My first instrument was the piano. So that started off keyboard playing.
Right.
I wasn't a huge fan of playing the piano after a while. It kind of got more stressed than having fun playing music. But then the organist at my church moved out of the state, and I was their only option because I could play piano. And I started learning to play the organ, and it ended up just being really fun, and I started taking lessons. It's really fun as well. It's kind of weird because my 2 favorite instruments happen to be complete opposites.
Yeah, that's right. It's almost like you talk to people who get into theater and they take degrees in theater tech, which you can always get work in.
Yeah.
And then they're actors or they're singers or whatever. And yes, they do all that stuff, but it's having the sort of economic safety net of having a profession is a very, very smart deal. I think also, I don't know if you'd agree, that having music as an avocation, something you love to do but are willing to really devote time to, versus having it as a vocation where you must make money, is really a better way to make music.
Yeah, I think definitely trying to make money off of music is a great idea, but depending on it and not even doing it for fun anymore is definitely, it's kind of pointless, I would say.
So where would you rank having fun among the important things about playing music?
Well, I think how much fun you're having can affect how well you play. I think if it isn't fun, you shouldn't be doing it. But also, there are certain elements to it that aren't fun that you kind of have to do if you want to be good at it.
The woodshed.
And yeah, so like metronome practice and scales. But yeah, it pays off though.
Being willing to go to the woodshed is an important attribute. That's not something I would expect in someone, nothing personal. In a young person, I would think that being willing to knuckle down and do scales and stuff like that is not that common. How is it you get yourself to really discipline to do that?
Well, I had a great teacher from Berkeley, Trevin Nelson, from that band I mentioned earlier, the Rutabaggers. He's the one who got me singing and got me using a metronome and practicing scales. He also taught me this great exercise for banjo players. You just play forward roll or any other kind of roll, put one of your fingers on the first fret, and then you just go all the way up the neck and all the way back down and bring it up different speeds with the metronome. That's really the first thing that got me able to play decently on the banjo.
Because you were able to pick up speed.
Yeah, it really helped me with my roll patterns.
Interesting. So favorite songs or couple of favorite tunes that you love to play on the banjo?
So I'm sure you know who Sammy Sheeler is with the Lonesome River Band. He wrote some really good tunes. I really like his one tune that I don't know how old it is, but Ernest T. Grass. That's a really good tune that I probably call too much. And then Herschel Sizemore, Rebecca. That's a really good mandolin tune that Jim Mills adapted into a great banjo tune as well.
Do you have a regular band of players you play with?
Not really. I used to be in a band that played pretty regularly. That kind of stopped working, just traveling that much. But I am in a family band with my 3 siblings. And then I'm in this other band. And we play not so often because we're all across the whole East Coast, really. We've got Tennessee, 3 Pennsylvania, and then 1 in Kentucky or West Virginia, North Carolina, I think, actually. I don't really remember, but yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a hypothetical, Izaak. You're the banjo player in the band. So the rest of the standard configuration is usually guitar, mandolin, bass, dobro, fiddle. Who are the other 5 players in your dream bluegrass band? And they can be living or dead, current players or past.
So if you're going to say that, then if I can pick really anybody, Tony Rice on guitar would be obviously the best option. Mandolin, really, probably my favorite mandolin player is actually Sam Zola. He plays, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's on my album playing guitar. And Bobby Hicks probably for fiddle. Or
that's a tough
Jason
call.
Bass. I got to say Ronnie Bowman. He's by far my favorite. And dobro. Let's see. I know quite a few good dobro players. As far as famous ones, I only really know of Jerry Douglas and Rob Ikes, but I really like this dobro player. Nick Zacchio is his name, I think, but he goes by Nacho.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how that nickname came out, but he didn't choose it.
Okay. Well, see, what's great about getting you to answer this question is the listeners get to hear about players they may not know. And they say, I'm going to check that guy out. Now, let's put it differently. They said, sorry, you got to fill in on guitar. Who's going to be your favorite banjo player to put up there?
Sammy Sheeler.
Okay, so now we have the band complete. We have your dream band. So now that we have our dream band of instrumentalists, who is your dream singer out there?
That's hard to decide. I would say Ronnie Bowman again. He's my favorite vocalist. And Tony Rice on baritone to sing with him would be great. And then tenor singers are obviously a good pick is Del McCurry.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. In fact, I was going to challenge you and say, why not Del? So there's now a 10 or 11-year-old Izaak or Isabel out there now who's thinking about picking up the banjo. What's your advice to him or her?
Well, you should definitely try it if you have one, because I didn't have any particular interest in the banjo until I tried it. And so if you do have an interest in the banjo, there's even more of a chance that you're going to like it.
From your perspective, as a young player, clearly very talented and very dedicated, what's your view of the future of our favorite music, with bluegrass and Americana type music?
Well, it's definitely branching out into a lot of different genres, which I respect. I do think traditional bluegrass is fading a little bit, but I don't think it's going to ever disappear. I think there's so many people who are young that are into bluegrass that I don't think there's any negativity in the future of bluegrass.
There's a million festivals and camps all over the place. Favorite one?
Well, probably my favorite is one of two festivals, actually. I have two local festivals that really kind of raised me as far as bluegrass goes. The AFBA, Appalachian Fiddle and Bluegrass Association, that's what that stands for. Then the Wind Gap Bluegrass Festival.
Yep.
They're both great festivals run by different people, but they're pretty similar. And I can't really decide between them because they're both great festivals. And then IBMA is probably a second place for me. Or Galax, too. I really like Galax, but it's really hard to decide a favorite bluegrass festival.
What makes something your favorite versus, yeah, fun, but just another one?
A lot of times the jamming is what defines a good festival for me. If there's a lot of jams going on, especially ones where I can be challenged and learn a lot just by playing,
right,
are the ones I really like.
Awesome. So do you have anything coming up or anything going on that you'd like to bring to our listeners' attention?
Well, I just finished recording an album with Tom Menti at Patuxent Music. I have some really good musicians, Sam Zola, who I mentioned earlier, on guitar, actually, Michael Johnson on bass and singing lead on the one vocal song on the album, Quentin Fisher on mandolin, Emily Rader on fiddle, and then we've got some guest players. Steve Leonard is doing a double banjo part with me, which I asked him to do last minute, so I'm glad he was able to do that. Yeah. And then Michael Cleveland doing a couple double fiddle parts.
Who? No, just kidding. Michael's great. I'm curious to know what it was like going from playing on a bandstand where you're doing a song and which was live and real time to going into a studio where it's all very controlled and scientific.
So a lot of people would probably think it's easier to play in the studio because there's a lot less pressure. You can just take a billion takes if you want. And I would say that's not true, actually. I find it a lot easier to play on stage than it is to play in the studio because for some reason, it's just there's a lot less stress for me on stage where even if you mess up, people know it's expected because you're on stage. But when you're in the studio, you have to worry about how much of other people's time you're taking up with your takes. And also tiring yourself out, doing the same thing over and over again, trying to get it right. It really is something that is hard to get done in one day. We kept recording over multiple days and going back and overdubbing stuff, which is to get exactly what I wanted it to sound like.
Bless the sound engineers, right?
Yeah, Tom Menti is the sound engineer, right? He's really good with just letting people record over and over again. He doesn't really worry about the time that much. And if you can't continue to do it that day, you just do it the next day or come back later.
So what's the name of the album?
The title track of my album is Black Oak Ridge. It's named after an incident in Tennessee that happened, I think, during the Great Depression. It was both a murder and a murder attempt, I believe. It involved a record-breaking amount of executions in the electric chair.
Okay. So this is a murder ballad with executions?
Not a murder ballad. It's an instrumental tune.
Oh, okay.
But yes, it's kind of capturing the essence, I think, of a murder during the Great Depression.
So I've had the opportunity to listen to you play at a couple of festivals. I think you were at the recent Jam Jersey and some others I've seen you at. And by the way, your younger brother, Leopold, has shown up as well. We've jammed with him. So Izaak, if people would like to come listen to you play, where can they do that?
I have 2 album release shows coming up. One of them is at Godfrey Daniels, which is a venue in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It's happening on April 29th, 2026. Then I have another one at this event called Bluegrass in the Barn. It's happening May 2nd. It's in Leesport, Pennsylvania. And that's a great venue. So.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for taking time with us today, Izaak. Really interesting conversation. And it's great to hear from the next generation. We look forward to listening to you and watching your career grow.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hambone, where you been? Little eyes of Jane.
Speaking with Alani and Izaak has really strengthened my hope and confidence that the future of our music is really in good hands. listening to them talk about both their dedication, focus, and talent, but also the fun and enjoyment they get out of the music makes me feel like, yeah, we're going to be watching some great musicians grow up and carry these traditions forward. Before we conclude, please remember to follow us at Bluegrass Brooklyn. Brooklyn spelled BKLYN. It's a tremendous help if you subscribe to and like our podcast. Drop an email to mike@bluegrassbrooklyn.com if you have any suggestions, ideas, topics, comments, or just want to say hi. And remember to check out bluegrassjamsnearme.com. And in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you around the Jam Circle.